My name is Eboni Harris. I'm a relationship therapist here in Houston, Texas, and the Woodlands. I also host a sex and relationship podcast called Room for Relations. We podcast every Monday. We come out on iTunes and SoundCloud. So if you want to hear us talk about everything from the first date to the last orgasm, talk about when we talk about emotions and communication. A lot of times people feel like they're good communicators. I'm a good communicator. They're just not listening. And that's not the case all the time. Sometimes we are decent communicators when we're communicating with people that understand everything we're saying, but we have to also learn how to communicate with those that may not be as clear on our feelings and the way we speak and things like that. One reason why we may not be communicating as effectively is because we don't use our emotions. We are just stating facts and we may be stating accusations. You just never know. And so people don't necessarily respond to that as much as they respond to you expressing your emotions. So you have to become clear on your feelings about a certain situation before you express them sometimes. So if you are bothered by something that your significant other is doing, if you are sad, hurt, happy, whatever, you have to become clear on your feelings. A lot of times people, the first thing they want to say is that I'm angry. And that's fine. You may be angry in that moment, but anger is usually a secondary emotion, meaning I felt something else before I got to anger. An example is if your best friend walked up to you and punched you in your face, what would your first emotion be? Probably not anger. It's probably more of confusion, maybe embarrassment if somebody's there, scared, hurt, fearful. Just, it's a lot of stuff that you may feel before you get to anger. That after a few minutes and after you let it process, then yes, you become angry. After you've kind of assessed the situation, then anger may be the easiest thing. But a lot of times when we talk about anger, that is like the tip of the iceberg. Like there is other stuff going on underneath our anger, but anger is the easiest one to display. And it's also kind of a protection to make sure that people don't cross us. So if I'm hurt by something you did, I may not want to express that I'm hurt, but I can say anger. I can show you that I'm angry, and then maybe you'll learn not to do that anymore. So that's the first thing is if you think you're angry, or if somebody accuses you of being angry and you know that you're not, really assess, what am I feeling at this moment? That is probably one of the most frustrating things I've heard about. One of the most frustrating things I've experienced in dating and relationships is when someone says, oh, you're mad at me. And I'm like, no, I'm not mad. I'm not upset. Well, what's wrong? And I'm trying to process it. See, I knew you were mad. I didn't say I was mad. Well, give me a second, because sometimes you have to figure out what you're feeling before I can communicate it to you. If I don't know what I'm feeling, I can't tell you anything. So if you give me a second to really think back and say, okay, he did this, and then immediately I felt hurt, or I felt invisible, or I felt, offended. All those things can come across looking like anger, but if I'm telling you that that's how I feel, then there needs to be some respect in that. And that goes both ways. I think sometimes when someone tells us they feel a certain way, we quickly go to, no, you're mad. No, you're angry. And it's like, don't discount my feelings. If I tell you that I feel this way, then that's the way I feel. And don't tell me that I feel something else. Yes, there may be some anger in that, but let's focus on the emotion that I'm sharing with you right now. So when we communicate, I'll do communication exercises all the time with my couples. I often talk to them and have them sit across from each other and actually go through how they communicate, and I correct them. I point out triggers. I point out, things that I see that they're doing to miscommunicate. I point out things that they're doing incorrectly and when they communicate. So I always have them use feeling words. So we start off with basic, I feel concerned about blah, blah, blah. But once we start talking about deeper issues, I really make them, I have a list of 100 feeling words, which thankfully, one of the groups I'm in, they have a shorter list that was a lot better, because my couples are like, this is 4 pages of words and they have to figure out what word they need. But one of the groups I'm in actually sent out a smaller list that is a little bit more effective and a little bit more focused, so that helps the couples. But they have a list of words and they have to point out what feeling, sorry, I just saw lightning, what feeling they are having at that moment. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but I think Houston is about to go through a monsoon or something. I'm not sure. We have a bad weather coming. So you have to go through what feelings was I feeling at that time? What was I dealing with? And so then you communicate that. You communicate, this is what I was feeling. I felt sad when you didn't have my back with our friends. I felt dismissed when you didn't come to dinner on time after I had slaved over dinner for 2 hours. I felt embarrassed when you joked about me in front of my family, so that is a better way to kind of communicate our feelings. So why does this matter? A lot of people don't understand. Why can't I just say I'm mad at you and they figure it out? First off, people aren't mind readers. That is, and I know you've heard this before. I know a lot of people have heard this before. People are not mind readers. They cannot know what you're thinking at all times. You can be mad at something extremely small in their eyes, if you could be mad at something extremely small in their eyes, and if they think you're upset about that, or if they thinking that's all they did, they may not be like, well, that can't be why they're mad, because if that's it, why are they so mad about that? But you may be mad about that exact thing. Or they may just not have any clue. They think that the day was fine, everything was going well. So you have to communicate what is going on. You have to let them know, especially if you want any changes in behavior. I know that people, when I say that, they're like, well, you can't change people. I agree, you cannot change people. But there are certain things that it's okay to express, like, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with you saying certain things to me in front of blah, blah, blah. I'm not okay with you being late to dinner and not letting me know. It makes me feel this way, So if you need to communicate something, it's better to use an emotion because, well, one, it's better to communicate it so they know, and two, it's better to use an emotion because it changes the dynamics of the conversation. Sometimes when we're having these conversations, when we're having this conflict, we tend to, it feels accusatory. It feels like we are being accused of something and we can't do anything right, if we're at the other end of that communication. So when you say, well, I feel this because of that, it kind of takes away that accusatory tone and is just saying like, look, this is how I felt. This is my issue with what you did. And I would appreciate it if, you tried to do something differently. I know you don't want me to feel that way. Like, you don't want to hurt me intentionally. You don't want to make me feel dismissed. You don't want to make me feel used or hurt or anything like that. So if that's the case, I'm letting you know that's how I felt in that moment. So if we can not do that anymore, and it should be a two-way street. Both people should be able to openly communicate their emotions and their feelings. Another reason is when you say things out loud, especially when somebody repeats it back to you, sometimes you don't realize how irrational that thought may be. I'll give you an example. Let's say, let's go back to the friends thing. And somebody made a joke about you and your partner laughed. And so you got upset. Let's say later on you were talking to your partner and saying like, I was hurt because Johnny made the joke about my shoes and you laughed. And then you may repeat that out loud and say, wait, the joke was kind of funny. He wasn't really saying anything negative. It was, everybody, we were kind of all going around joking with each other. So the fact that he joked about me shouldn't have been that big of a deal. When we say things out loud, and especially if somebody repeats it back, like, okay, so you're mad about this. It really does, like, we have to kind of say, wait, does that make sense? It helps you kind of reflect on what's going on with your emotions. Last but not least, it tends to have a bigger impact than just saying I'm mad at you, or you did this. When you can put an emotion with that, it tends to help. It tends to have a bigger impact on, sorry, my computer went off. It tends to have a bigger impact on the communication, and the person tends to remember it more. They tend to be more effective when you put an emotion with that. So those are like the reasons why it's really important to communicate with emotion. So if you're ever hearing, or if you're ever thinking like they don't listen to me, I'm always clear my emotion or clear with my communication and things like that. Maybe try adding some emotion to that. Maybe figuring out what you felt in that moment, and you figuring out if that's a trigger. And that's another topic, and we'll talk about that probably later this week. But we have triggers that we don't recognize sometimes. And people will step on those grenades all day, every day. And we don't know that that's our trigger. And it comes in different forms. And so we just don't recognize that. So make sure that you are aware of your own triggers. And if that's the case, where those emotions are coming from. Is it based on childhood? Is it based on previous relationships? So that's all I have for today. Hopefully I'll start getting some people actually in the scope. I know I have some replay viewers. So thank you for coming back and watching the replay. So if you have any questions or anything like that, the easiest way to send a question is either through my website, eboniharris.com, or through roomforrelations@gmail.com. That's the podcast website. Those are probably the best ways to get in contact with me. Across social media, I'm Eboni Harris, MA. And again, if you ever want to listen to me rant and talk about these topics with my friends, you can listen to Room for Relations, which is on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Yep. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.